Hello, I'm MojerTorres, and I'm a person who is in sustained recovery. And I also take medications to help me sustain my abstinence. And I'm here to represent the subpopulation of people in recovery who use medications. And what I know, as having been involved in Faces of Voices since its very early inception as a campaign, and we have integrated the principle of diverse paths and respectful acceptance of diversity and different paths to recovery as a principle, a founding principle of the recovery movement. And I'm very proud of that. And I've sat forefront and center and made sure that's been respected, and by and large it has been. But I also think it's incumbent upon us to really help put some more definition to what we mean by people who take medications in recovery. We don't mean, certainly, that just because you take a medication in recovery, even if it is something to sustain or maintain a state, that you necessarily are in recovery. What we're talking about when we're talking about the population that I represent are people who are stabilized. We're talking about not people newly admitted into treatment into a phase 1, not people who are using medications to detox or withdraw, not people who are under the influence of medications, but who are intoxicated by medications. But we're talking about medications that are helpful in sustaining recovery. And specifically to prevent relapse, the medications that we're finding are most popular and most effective are medications that impact cravings, that help to quiet cravings. And these can be enormously helpful to people in recovery. I'm here as a subpopulation, though, because even though the pathways are accepted by and large, there is still this, and I don't mean to rain on everyone's parade, but there is still this sense of people who do take medications in recovery of being judged, that you're judged from within the recovery community. And this is, my message to you today is that we're judged about what medication we take, and I think methanol's probably on the bottom of that list, how long and how much medication you take, what the circumstances are, and then so there's this sense of even that you had to take the medication, that somehow or other you are less than or distinguished or different from. And I'm really here to just bang home the message that that isn't true, and that's got to change. And I'll use an example of Marilyn Parks, our Faces and Voices chair, who is an old-time 12-stepper. I mean, about as old as they get. He's original. Very laid-back gentleman with much wisdom. And he'd been talking to me about medications in recovery for quite some time. And it came time for him to articulate. We were having a debate about this, and probably had to do with the definition of recovery, because we all know methadone, Suboxone, even the Betty Ford definition they're in there, And Merlin was saying that he doesn't quite understand, he's having problems understanding that we now have new information about addictions. We know more about the neuroscience, and we're learning more every day. We have isolated a gene, which gives the propensity. We have better and newer medication products available to us. And his problem in understanding was, why wouldn't we want people still suffering from addiction to have available to them, to access, and to maximize their potential for recovery through medications if that's what they need? Why, if you had a child suffering from cancer, and there were new medications available to treat cancer, you would want to explore and learn about those medications. And in that same sense, I sort of labeled his perspective as just the humane approach. This is the humane approach. We're not talking about the science approach, because the science, there is a logic that we have a chronic disease of the brain that has structure and function differences. And if you accept that, and this is not a philosophy anymore, this is fact, You can't go far from thinking that maybe there would be medications to help stabilize, or that would be helpful in normalizing some of the brain chemistries. But this isn't science, this is humanity. Just from a humanities perspective, we really need to look at how we can get more people in recovery, and by maximizing our information, first and foremost, about the disease of addiction, but then secondly, about what medications are available, what they do, so that people can make the decisions with their ASON certified, hopefully doctors, whether or not a medication may be helpful to them at any given point during the trajectory of this chronic disease, including somebody who may be a chronic addict, maybe a chronic opiate addict, who has been trying abstinence and has been going to meetings or hasn't been using, and suddenly finds himself in a situation where the cravings are overwhelmed. Maybe they had a trigger, and relapse is absolutely inevitable. And I talk to drug court people all the time about this, and even family services. They all know these clients. They talk about these cravings, they're going to relapse, it's inevitable. That person should be able to access a medication that may help support and prevent as a relapse preventative, instead of having to come through a whole treatment system just to access it. We should make medications more accessible for the limited purposes that they serve, because we're not talking about medications being treatment or medications being recovery. We're just talking about an adjunct, something to help maximize the potential for recovery. And the second thing I'm going to talk about is that we do need to establish a dialogue. We definitely need to hear from people, especially and most particularly in the recovery community, that still have problems with this, with medications. We need to hear about your concerns. Many of your concerns are, I'm going to tell you, absolutely legitimate. I've been talking to a lot of drug court folks. They see the absolute worst, especially methadone. They don't see stabilized patients. They don't know there are stabilized patients. They wouldn't know what a stabilized patient looks like, by the way. And it makes a difference to see, hear, and know that you have a very distorted perspective, because you're in the criminal justice system, of methadone's failures. That this isn't methadone treatment, this just happens to be somebody who can't get into alcohol detox or benzodiazepine detox, who also, has committed a crime. So we need to get that dialogue going, because I think addressing, there hasn't been any objections that I couldn't validate and absolutely talk to somebody about. And just to begin to get people to look at medications as possibly different, because they are different now. They're different. There are many more medications in production that are coming up way more effective than what we've had so far. When the topirinates and the medications that really hit cravings with alcohol start to come out, you're going to see a totally different kind of response from consumers. And then the last thing certainly is that we need to make our systems compatible with maximizing the potential of medications. By that I mean that our treatment systems, we need to be able, somebody needs to be in a residential treatment who may need a medication, and should be in a halfway house situation where they may need medications as well, and should have access to the full choice of resources to achieve and sustain recovery. Systems, family court systems that don't look at recovery in terms of families, that aren't even consistent with the concept of recovery. You relapse and that's it, Those custody termination proceedings begin, and so we need to do a lot of education that way. And certainly with judges, with respect to a lot of the judges who just have really bad perceptions of medications and are not receptive to them, and will not let patients be or remain on medication. I know one case where a judge actually called up the medical director of a treatment facility to dictate the terms of detox from methadone for one of the clients. Now, that's not practicing medicine without a license. And we also need some legal supports to help really enunciate a policy of intolerance towards discrimination about medications and about people in recovery. And they're all one and the same issue. We must be inclusive. We absolutely will. We will limit our population by those who define themselves as in recovery if we don't aggressively outreach to those who don't, but who nonetheless meet the definition for having overcome addiction. So that's about all I'm going to say for now. Thank you very much.